So we're gonna cut down the chatter for now. Um,
And
I
also, just to let you know, Jackie Billuck mentioned that she's having a few tech issues, but she is joining now, so she'll be here in just a couple minutes.
Okay, cool. So if everybody who is not a candidate, oh, hold on. Okay, sorry. I don't know if you could hear the double sound there for a minute. I had to mute the YouTube channel in the background because it went live and then there's like a 15 to 20-second delay. So, yeah, if everybody who's not a candidate could mute their microphone, that would be awesome. I have put the email address candidateforum@spokanedemocrats.org in the chat. So if anybody wants to submit a question, we still probably have some time for some questions. There have been some that were submitted previously, but I'm going to go ahead and mute myself unless something massively tragic happens and I need to jump in and turn this over to Tori Hungerford, who they are the vice chair for the 7th legislative district and do not live in Spokane County, so completely new to the party here. Um, thank you, Tori, so much. We really appreciate you coming to help moderate this for us. And did you want to let the other folks know about the other two candidates?
Yeah, we have a couple candidates who aren't able to come tonight. One of them is Dennis Ashley, who's in the hospital right now, and then Sammy Sullivan are the two that responded that they won't be able to come. So first off, thank you, Joanne, for walking me through all of this because I am tech illiterate. And second off, thank you all for having me here and moderate this discussion. I think it's super cool, and I'm really excited to meet all the candidates and hear what you all want to do for Spokane County. How we're going to structure this is we're going to give every candidate 2 to 3 minutes to introduce themselves, let us know who you are, what you're all about, all that good stuff. And then from there, we have some pre-submitted questions that folks have sent in to the email address, which is candidateforum@spokanedemocrats.org. So if you haven't sent in any questions, make sure you do that so we can get those out to all the candidates. And those questions, we're just asking you to keep them 1 to maybe 2 minutes. And if you go too long, I will cut you off. Not much, but I'll try to be harsh.
So I am going to be keeping time and I will chat whomever is speaking when you've got 30 seconds left for the 3-minute we're doing 2-minute openings actually because we've got well, there's there's 5 of you. We can do 3-minute. That's fine. Yeah. I'll chat you when there's 30 seconds left. That way, you know, you've got to start wrapping it up. And then if you go past the 3 minutes, we'll probably cut you off as quickly as is politely possible. So, yes. I'm going to go back on mute. I just want to let you know that you will be chatted and you will be there will be a timer going, so you don't have to worry about keeping track of that yourselves.
All right. Awesome. So we're going to just go down the list, start from chair and then downward. So let's start with Nicole Bishop. You have the floor.
Great. Thanks so much. As I was writing this, I was trying to think what to say. And I remembered back to nearly a decade ago, June 2011. I was a junior in college and an intern in the Obama White House. And I was speech writing intern for President-elect Joe Biden. And my first assignment was to research and write part of a speech that he would deliver to the American Stuttering Association. My brother has stuttered nearly his whole life, and he's the one who got me interested in politics. So at that moment, as my past and my future converged, I thought I had reached my pinnacle. And then 5 years later, Trump had that infamous moment where he mocked the reporter who had a physical disability. And it was such a stark juxtaposition to see all of the progress and goodness we saw for 8 years crumble. And then Trump was elected and we saw what happened. People called us hysterical for being upset. They called our speculation about the future mere doomsaying. But now we have 300,000 dead from a global pandemic that nearly every other country has been able to get under control. And we had an attempted coup at our nation's capital while law enforcement officers who shot peaceful Black Lives Matter protesters with rubber bullets and tear gas just a few months ago now quietly allowed an act of domestic terrorism to occur. All of our worst fears came true, and then some. And that's why I want to continue my work as chair of this party. We have a long way to go. In Spokane, we face Matt Shea and the Church at Planned Parenthood, Jenny Graham and Nadine Woodward. We are a microcosm of the country, and I'm running so I can help make our region blue. Georgia did it, Arizona did it. We had some great people who put in a lot of work in our region too. And I want to continue what we started and tap into my experience as a fundraiser and a community organizer and coalition builder to make Spokane blue. By this point, you've had 6 months to get to know me. You've seen my bio on the website. I'm not going to go over my litany of experience, but I do want to say that to turn Spokane blue will require the ability to adapt and change from old ways of doing things. I've seen the tenacity of our party, though. We've made it through a sudden shift in leadership, a hard-fought election, 4 years of Trump, and a terrorist attack and office fire. And we've emerged with a sturdier foundation. I'm not volunteering 15 to 30 hours a week for any other reason than to make our community and our party better and finally make Spokane blue. So I thank you for your time. I thank you for your faith and to have elected me as chair for these past 6 months, and I'm eager to continue this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Now we're going to go into the vice chairs. The only person currently present that is running is Riley Smith. So Riley, if you would like to take the floor, it's yours.
Yeah, thank you. And first, I just want to thank everyone who made this happen, everyone who's here to see this. And I want to give my well wishes to the other vice chair candidates who weren't able to make it tonight. My name is Riley Smith, as you can see on the screen. I'm a little new to the scene here, but my background kind of begins in my time in college when I worked in Denny Heck's congressional office, now I think sworn in today as our next lieutenant governor. So that's exciting. I just graduated from UW here in June and immediately hit the ground running, working for Zach Sapone's campaign for state representative as his campaign manager. I won't go into that campaign too much. You're all Democrats. You all saw the results. We narrowly lost, but we were able to pull out the closest race in the 6th LD that we've had in decades since we won it in, I think, 2008. Something I'm very proud of and something I want to bring to the party. Right now, I feel that our state is split in two, West Side and the East Side, and we're consistently thrown out of the Democratic realm. We're seen as just a place where they can funnel their money to their consultants on the West Side and make sure that the mail moves, and we just stay happy. I'm kind of tired of that brand of politics. I've lived on both sides of the state now, and we're kind of seen as an afterthought. And I won't go too long on that, but it grinds my gears a little bit. So it's time for us to win here. And my experience with the campaign for Zach showed me that there are Democrats here that we haven't tapped into yet. Our community shares our democratic values, and it's something that they don't see the value in voting at this moment in time. Well, now we have a moment where there was an attempted coup on our government at the behest of the president of the United States, and we can't miss this moment. While it sucks that it came at the cost of Donald Trump for 4 years, we have a moment to do something very special, as we saw in Georgia. When we got the Senate results in Georgia, it felt like a weight was just lifted off of my chest, that we finally had a government that represented the people and that would do good things for the people. But here locally, we've had people misrepresenting us way long before Trump came into office. We've had Kathy McMorris Rodgers in office who tried to overthrow a free and fair election. And I don't remember any other representative in my lifetime that has served in the 5th except for Kathy McMorris Rodgers. I think it's time we start at the top and oust her, but we still have representatives in the state house like Mike Voles, Jenny Graham, Jeff Hawley, who are doing things that hurt us here in Spokane and help those on the West Side. And it's time that we bring Democrats into power, come together, and make sure that Spokane is represented the way that it should be.
Awesome. Thank you, Riley. Continuing down, we have some people in the list who aren't here. So we'll start with some state committee members. Dr. Melissa Bedford. No?
We actually have Jackie Belock here.
Oh,
for vice chair.
okay. Jackie, you're here. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I was having some technical issues when I was first signing in, so we're good. Glad I'm here now.
All right. You have the floor.
No, thank you. So I am Jackie Belock, and like Nicole, I've been around for the last 6 months. Her and I both kind of came back into the fold around the same time. And my background, a lot of it is I grew up on the West Side, and I got my political start working with the Thurston County Democrats back in like 2006, 2007 timeframe. I was a pregnant single mom who was working as an event planner, and my boss, the owner of the company, happened to be very active in the local Democrats and local politics. And that's really when I started to realize that these things, they do affect you. So oftentimes people in my situation, they didn't participate in the political process because they didn't see how it directly affected them. But the more I got involved, the more I realized that no, there's more to this. It's not just about voting, but it's about getting other people to vote, getting people to come into the fold. And I've dabbled with other parties. I did a little bit of work with the Republicans when I was in college, and the Libertarians, I'm sad to say. But I started with the Democrats and came back to the Democrats because this really is the party that is going to bring about the most change and has the best shot at really bringing about the future that we all believe in. And so I moved out here 10 years ago as a single mom who was going to put herself through college. And I went to Eastern and started working in local politics out here around that time as well. And I held voter registration drives on campus, did everything I could to help get college students involved, as well as people in the community as well, because I came in as a non-traditional student. I was already a mother and had a career before I went to college. So for me, I had a different perspective that I could offer to people to help bring them into the fold. And that was really something that benefited me and also benefited the community. So I realized, though, that there were too many lawyers and just regular politician types dealing with politics, and that were guiding the way. And there weren't enough diverse voices and backgrounds represented in our local politics. And so I made it a point of educating myself in the earth sciences. I got my degrees in geology and paleontology. So I have a very firm understanding of climate change and these issues that face us. And then I pursued my career towards education, and specifically teaching adults at the community college level, because like Dr. Jill Biden, I saw that there was value in these institutions that are often overlooked. And so much of my work has been geared towards bringing people in that are often overlooked, whether they're low income, low participation voters, people in marginalized groups. I've always done whatever I can to bring people in and show them that this is that party it's that big tent party. And so I'm going to bring more of that energy and more of that commitment and passion to the work that I've been doing on the bylaws committee to also be more inclusive, as well as bring that to the executive board. So I would like to thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Now we're going to go to the state committee members, and we'll start with Dr. Melissa Bedford. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Tori. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Melissa Bedford. My pronouns are she, her. And I am here to run for the female identifying state committee member position. And I'm very excited to be pursuing this role. I sent out my biography, which is on our website, that was shared with all of you. And I really, along the same lines as Jackie, I'm kind of that different background coming into this world of politics. So I've always been a very proud Democrat. I was raised a proud Democrat. I'm actually new to the Spokane area. I moved here in 2019. So Spokane County has now, become my home. Originally, I am from Northern Nevada by way of San Francisco. And so when I say I was raised as a very much a liberal family, my dad was working in San Francisco and participating in the protests against the Vietnam War. So very liberal minded is how I was raised. And so I'm very proud of that and that background. I am also multiracial. I am half Chinese Filipino. So I have grown up knowing what it's like to experience being viewed as the other. I have been called racial slurs. I have witnessed apologies. I'm also an animal lover. If you didn't see the cat that jumped up in the Zoom earlier, and then now the dog squeaking the toy. So I mean, like I've heard people make fun of my mom for her accent and not being able to speak English. So I've witnessed a lot of that hatred and unkindness to people from diverse backgrounds. And so I now am a teacher of teachers by way of teaching at the elementary school level. I was a elementary, upper elementary grade level teacher, general education, and I taught at low income schools. So schools that had high minority populations. Most of my students were Hispanic. I would make relationships with my families, and they would ask me, if you come to my house, are you going to tell immigration on my family? So these are the types of experiences that I have dealt with in my work in education. And that's something I really want to bring to the Spokane County Democrats and the Central Committee, is just this passion for supporting and celebrating diversity and promoting inclusion in our organization. Because I feel like that has been a missing component. And while I admire and fully support getting Democrats elected, I also think we really need to work on educating our community. If we've seen anything after Wednesday, there is a big lack of education in our country. And when people are claiming that it was Antifa doing what they're doing and they can't even define what fascism is, we're missing some background knowledge here. So I think it's really important, and I really hope to bring my passion for education and really help our community expand and learn more in order to help more Democrats get elected and turn our county blue. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for that. And we will end with Andy McGee. You have the floor. Andy, you are currently muted, so you may have to unmute yourself.
Thank you. I'm Andy McGee. I'm running for the male identifying state committee member for Spokane County. I started out my adult life in the United States Marine Corps. And, you know, at first I was a teenager just trying to keep up with the others. And then I figured out that the job is taking care of others. And that's largely how I've spent my adult life, is taking care of the people around me, doing the work that needs to be done. When I was in the Marine Corps, I was stationed about 45 minutes south of Washington, D.C. My girlfriend at the time worked in the Capitol building as an intern for a Republican congressman. And I've been through those halls, and I remember the awe that I felt the first time being there. And after 9/11, that same girlfriend, then just a friend, told me stories that made me embarrassed of our country. Having worked there for several years, she was being stopped 4 or 5 times a day because she's Pakistani American. They all knew her. They just thought, hey, this is someone I should harass. And that really offended me. And then Wednesday, I wanted to hear the news on Georgia, and I put in my earpiece, and my instant reaction was, wait, did I hear that right? So I take that little insurrection really personally. It tramples on a lot of my values. I'm about making things better for everyone. I spent most of my adult life afraid I couldn't buy groceries for my kids. That didn't change until I got a union job. And there we go. I'm also a union guy. I was nominated to the executive board for my union before I was eligible to be on the executive board, and I had to make them wait 3 months. So now I serve on the executive board of my union. I'm a shop steward. I'm an alternate delegate to the Spokane Regional Labor Council because I don't have the seniority yet. We're unions, that's how we work. I recently just finished a term as the state committee member for the 3rd Legislative District. I joined the Labor Caucus, where I am the 5th Congressional District Representative for the Labor Caucus. And I joined the Progressive Caucus. The way it's scheduled, we can't join all the caucuses that we want. A lot of the meetings are concurrent with each other. So
Hey, Andy, can you see the chat? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I was chatting you the time and you're over, bud.
Oh, wow.
Sorry. I'm going to let you wrap up, but I wanted to let you know. Got to be fair to everybody here. It's okay.
Oh, we're good.
No, go ahead and wrap up. I don't want to cut you off mid-sentence and not let you finish.
So, but I chose the Progressive Caucus and the Labor Caucus because I am Labor and that's very important to me. And the Progressive Caucus really wraps in a lot of the values espoused by the other caucuses as well. And I think that gets me a bigger voice to help represent the 3rd Legislative District and hopefully the county Democrats soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Andy, for that. I am going to mute you right now because I know you're on your phone, so it's kind of hard with the buttons and all that kind of stuff. So we have some questions that were previously sent to us already. So people who are watching, if you want to send a question, again, it's candidateforum@SpokaneDemocrats.org. Putting that in one more time. Good advertisement. So these are some of the previously submitted questions. I'm going to start off this one and give it to Nicole to begin. So have a minute to minute and a half, roughly 2 minutes to answer each of these questions. So the question for you is, what is one thing that you feel Representative McMorris-Rodgers has done to benefit the 5th? And how will you overcome this in terms of finding a candidate who can run against her?
That's a great question. And as I'm here struggling trying to find an answer to the first part of the question, because the reality is she has been absolutely devastating to the 5th. I think if I were to give her any credit about what she's done, she has helped to increase awareness about people with intellectual developmental disabilities. I know that her own child faces certain struggles with that, and so she's helped to increase awareness. That's quite literally the only thing I could think of, because the reality is along the way, she's created toxicity that's created this cult of Donald Trump and that far right white nationalism that's pushed our country into the direction that it has. And she's been here for far too long. Hearing what Riley mentioned about how she's the only congressperson in the 5th that he's known in the years that he's had memory is really heartbreaking, because I've seen people and know of, Tom Foley, and that was a time when our region was much better represented. And so, yes, we do need a plan to get rid of Kathy McMorris-Rodgers, and we've made several valiant efforts. I think in particular, a couple of years ago with Lisa Brown was as close as we've come in quite some time. And I think what we've learned from this is that we need a strong candidate. And so in order to do that, we need to start looking early. We need to start that machine early and often. And already I've been in talks with some folks to see who can lead up this committee. And I think that part of that is doing a survey of what are all of the county positions that are going to be coming up soon, and having people go forward and doing their research on who in my LD is available to that. And then I think beyond that, creating a committee itself simply for ousting Kathy McMorris-Rodgers is what we need to do. But part of that is that we need to be willing to look outside our region. I think my vice chair currently, William Kilpatrick, has mentioned, coming from a more rural area, that Spokane is kind of like the Seattle to the rural areas in our region. And we need to be sure that we're willing to meet them where they're at and talk to them and have those real conversations and not come from our ivory Spokane tower. So there's a lot that we need to do, and I'm eager to listen and do what it takes to get it done. And I know I'm at time, so I feel confident that the other folks here will be able to add on to that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nicole. Riley, I'm going to give it to you now to add on and continue this discussion.
Yeah, I would agree with Nicole on every level that Kathy McMorris-Rodgers has been devastating, not just to Spokane County, but our entire Eastern Washington region. For the first part of the question, the only thing that I can think of that she has benefited this community with was maybe aiding and helping to bring money home for the city line, but I'm not sure how integral she even was in that process. I think I agree with Nicole in the fact that we need to create a committee just to get her out of office. I'm too young to remember the glory days of Tom Foley. I hear the stories from my parents and my grandparents about how awesome it was. And actually just campaigning in the 6th, I just saw a Tom Foley sign this past fall. And I was like, that must be nice. First and foremost, it does take a good candidate. You can't just put anyone up against Kathy McMorris Rodgers and expect that the best ground game and the best digital game, and you can be firing on all cylinders. If you don't have a good candidate, we're just not going to beat Kathy McMorris Rodgers because of the demographics of the 5th congressional district. So I think that search, I agree, needs to start now, and that we need to really be vetting these folks. We as the party do have a lot of power in selecting who the party wants to represent us and our values, and we need to exercise that power. We can be an open tent party, but we still also have to give the constituents a reason why they should fire Kathy McMorris Rodgers. It's not just the reason why you should hire the Democrat, but there are endless reasons of why we need to fire Kathy McMorris Rodgers above everything. And I think that's more of an approach that Democrats need to start taking.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Riley. We're going to continue down the line. Jacqueline, would you like to add on and answer this question?
Sure. So one positive I would say that has come from the disaster that is Kathy McMorris Rodgers is that, especially the last 4 years, with her being a vocal supporter of Donald Trump, is that she has brought a lot of attention to our region. And that can be a blessing and a curse in a lot of ways. When I was first going to school here, my husband is a disabled veteran and gets all of his medical care at the Spokane VA. If you are a veteran and you have dealt with the Spokane VA, you know what a headache and a disaster it is at that institution. When you call her office and you let her know that there are problems with veteran issues and problems with receiving veteran services, she is really good about actually following through on those things and taking care of that for you. And she was able to get my husband the care that he needed at that time. That being said, she hasn't done much else for us, and she hasn't done anything else for the region that has been a positive as a whole. I have one anecdote of a time that I personally benefited from her representation, but then again, if it had been anybody else, they would have done the same thing. It is literally your job as my representative. So I don't have much to say for anything positive that she has done to our region, for our region as a whole, other than she has brought a lot of attention to the area as a vocal supporter of Trump. Again, like I just mentioned, my husband being a veteran, my husband's a veteran, my father was a veteran, my grandparents, aunts and uncles, my little brother is currently in the Air Force Honor Guard serving over in DC right now. And the events of Wednesday were really, really unsettling for me and my family and my family's history. And we have defended that Constitution for several generations. And it was not okay. And she is the one that signed on to that. She agreed to that. And she is a big supporter of what we just saw go down, and we can't have her anymore. Like that's the number one reason to fire her. She's a traitor.
Thank you, Jacqueline. I'm going to give this question over to Melissa, if you'd like to chime in.
I mean, I don't have much else to add on top of what's already been said by Nicole, Riley, and Jackie. I've heard, I'm also involved with the Spokane County Young Democrats. And so something I have heard that by way of CMR, that the Republican Party actually does a fairly decent job of supporting their campaign workers after the fact. So when candidates are elected, the Republican Party actually does a pretty decent job of providing work opportunities for their campaign workers or people, you know, who helped along the way. And that's something I think, so I think in that sense, that's something that she can be admired for, as far as paving the way for young people interested in politics and wanting to work in that field. However, I feel like the Democrats could absolutely and should be doing that as well. Kind of piggybacking on what Jackie was saying, as far as, you know, what CMR did in recent years, in the last 4 years, and being a supporter of Donald Trump, I mean, she flat out came out saying, I'm going to, you know, support this contesting, sorry, I'm thinking of my verbs here, contesting of the Electoral College And then when it came down to it on Wednesday, she, now then she released this statement of like, oh, well, no, I no longer support it in result of this. And it's like, is that really the case, or are you just saving your hide? And really, I think we know what she was actually doing. So I do think she is a detriment to our community. And I think, as Riley was saying, like, we really just need to get strong candidates out there, or Nicole was saying we need strong candidates out there. And Riley was saying we need to say that it's not just a matter of this candidate's the best. This is why she's not the best and why she should not be there. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I was reminded that this question was sent in by a man named Dylan Ekins. So Dylan, if you're watching on YouTube, your questions are being answered. And finally, Andy, this question goes to you. So we've heard a lot already about we need to get her out, but how do we attract more ag voters? She seems to have the agricultural base in her pocket, according to Dylan Ekins, and he's asking, how can we find a candidate that can attract those voters?
So Kathy McMorris Rogers' support of Donald Trump also supported his tariffs, which devastated our rural ag voters. People are holding on to their farms by a thread right now. And we need to incorporate that into messaging. And if we're going to take a serious go at the 5th, what we've got to do is we've got to meet them where they are. That's in rural areas, that tends to be the churches. So you've got to go there, you've got to go to their community events, and you're going to be meeting not very many voters compared to when you're in downtown Spokane. But you go there, you talk about values. That's what they care about. And they get an image of our values that does not match reality. So a one-on-one conversation or a 1-on-10 conversation about how our values match their values, I think goes a long way. And I don't see any way for us, especially after redistricting, to even be competitive in the 5th unless we are out there where they are. As far as recruiting a candidate, we'll know. We can look at who we have. We have some brilliant people here. I haven't heard one particular name floated, but we have people here who I think the working class people can really identify with, who are brilliant, who have the right positions. But we have to show them that applying the basics will work in the 5th in order to get them to run.
Thank you, Andy. This next question is submitted to us by Yvette Joseph, and she is asking the question, few changes have been made to address racial equity within the Spokane County Democratic Party. How do you intend to address your position of white privilege or not white privilege, if you don't have white privilege, and create change? I'm going to give this one over first to Nicole.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much for asking that question, Yvette. It's a really important question. I have to say, I am really proud of the work that we've done to begin to address racial inequity in the party. In July, 3 out of the 4 people who were elected to serve were people of color, and I and others have worked to recruit diverse members to the party. But the reality is there's so much restorative work that needs to be done. Under previous leadership, we lost a lot of the trust of so many diverse communities, and the onus is on us to undergo the restorative processes to earn that trust back. This is a process that we've begun in the past 6 months, but it's going to be ongoing. I'm also incredibly proud of our body voting to approve bylaw changes that, one, place de facto positions on the e-board reserved for diverse communities. And then we also expanded our bylaws to allow DACA recipients or people with felony convictions to be able to be elected to party leadership. And I'm proud that we continue to push for these reforms against some pretty serious combativeness and pushback that we received. And Yvette, I have to say, you were one of the fiercest opponents to these reforms. One of the arguments that you used was that it was election time. But as far as I'm concerned, bureaucracy has always been the gatekeeper to progress, especially when it comes to people of color. I'm not white, but I am white passing. And that comes with the privilege that I could see the systems that have held back people of color and use my relative privilege to push against them and make change. And I've done that. And many people on our team have done that. And I'm so proud of that. And I think it also is worth saying that we've done work on education too, in large part thanks to Dr. Melissa Bedford. And this is part of our restorative process. I'm proud that the e-board approved my budget to provide funding to pay for educators of diversity and racial equity to enlighten our PCOs. If we want to make our party more diverse and equitable, it starts by addressing implicit biases within our party and within ourselves. We have a lot of trust to rebuild, and I'm proud of these steps that we've started, and I intend to continue this in earnest.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I'm gonna give this question over to, let's shake things up. How about, okay, Riley, I'm not gonna shake things up. Too much pressure on my own self. All right, Riley.
No worries. Yeah, first I would like to say I'm proud to be running along someone who has already fighted for those changes and knows that there's still work to be done. Unfortunately, I wasn't elected in July and I didn't play much of a role in that process, but I am proud to be running alongside those that did. And there's no question that there is a lot of work left to be done. I am a white male and I acknowledge my privilege that I possess. Whether it be fair or not, it's not. I do carry a white privilege that I need to be able to, I need to take my understanding of what others have gone through and how they have felt historically and in present day America, and use my privilege to help those in need. I don't have a lot of the same problems personally that a lot of my colleagues may experience, but I can empathize with those and understand, you know, how they might feel and how I can work to make them feel better about that. I think that it takes a coalition that we need to build from all backgrounds. It's going to take every race, every gender, every ethnicity to come together and build behind one platform. We can disagree on policy day in and day out, but as we know, Democrats are the party that include others, that are the big tent party that need to make sure those voices are heard. And the way that we do that is actually bring those people into leadership. And I will support every measure that promotes diversity on our committee leadership, on our e-board, and every facet of the party, because as we just saw, we just won the Senate because of Black voters in Georgia. They are the backbone of the party, and we need to make sure that they're represented.
Thank you so much, Riley. Jacqueline.
All right, hi. So to address that question, in July when I ran as well with Nicole, like I did not get elected to the e-board at the time, but instead I did have the opportunity to hop on and do work with that bylaws committee. And so over the last 6 or 7 months or so, I've been really proud of the work that the bylaws committee has done in helping to advance opportunities for inclusiveness and making things more equitable for people, as well as being more transparent so that our community can be involved and marginalized groups within the community can have a role and actually be on the board. A lot of the complaints earlier this year, especially around the special election, were that people didn't understand how the process worked. People felt like they didn't understand what was going on, and that they weren't being heard or represented. And there was a lot of issues with that. And so a big part of the work that I have been trying to do on the bylaws committee is make things open and accessible and make sure that the rhetoric that we use is inclusive and that the words that we use, like the way that we go about bringing people in, we are fostering an environment of openness and inclusiveness, because in the past some of our leadership has been closed off to those sort of things, and we are often met with obstruction from people whenever we are trying to put forth new ideas that may be viewed as a little progressive, or people feel like it might be taking some of their power away from them, when all we're trying to do is bring more people in. Because again, we're all here for a reason. Whether you do benefit from white privilege or not, if you're part of the Democratic Party, you're clearly not as privileged as some, or else you'd be a Republican. Okay, true white privilege, those are the Republicans. that's what we see white privilege looking like. They're able to put that aside. If you're here and you're an ally and you are doing the good work and you are part of the progress, then I'm really proud to be part of that. And I'm proud of the work Spokane County has done, especially in the last year. We've made a lot of progress.
Thank you. Thank you, Jacqueline. Dr. Melissa Bedford, if you would like to answer this question.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. So this topic, very near and dear to my heart. This is one of my areas of research as far as being a scholar. And it's also very personal to me. Again, growing up multiracial, I've experienced, being judged and looked at differently for my diversity. As I got older, I definitely became more and more white passing. I got rid of my cute little bangs, as my Wawa used to cut my hair with a bowl. I'm not even kidding. And so hearing this, and honestly, I'm a little baffled by the question in the beginning to say that few changes have been made. And like when you read that, Tori, that just kind of put me off to hear that question at first, not from you, just that the fact it's being asked, that saying that a lot of changes haven't been made so far, where really I feel like in the last 6 months, a lot of changes have been made. I was invited by this e-board that has served for the last 6 months by Nicole to serve as the chair of the Education and Training Committee. I never saw anything like that before with the previous board. And so to have that opportunity, I think like that just shows that effort in the Spokane County Democrats, that we want to make this an opportunity for people to learn and really make it a more inclusive environment. And as Nicole noted, the idea of implicit bias, I think that's where so much of this starts, and really being able to recognize when that's happening and being reflective of ourselves. Because as a teacher, if I make a mistake, because I'm not perfect, I'm the first to admit it. So if I have implicit biases, I can recognize that. And I think, we have to be willing to grow as individuals to really help our organization and our community. So I'm just going to kind of push back on that question and say, I think we've done a lot of great work already, and I look forward to doing even more of it. So.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Andy, would you like to answer this question? Hold on, Andy, let me unmute you. I think I have to ask you to unmute.
There we go. I would love to answer this question. So I as well disagree with the premise of the question. So before the new board was elected, we had a DACA member who wanted to run for a state committee member position, the one I am running for, when it was vacated. And they were told they couldn't run because they were DACA. And I made the argument that the bylaws are in future tense. There's no absolute way of knowing that they won't receive their citizenship and register to vote. And my argument was shot down. And it was, in my opinion, a case of someone wanting to protect their own influence. And that's really the opposite of the job. If it diminishes our voice, who cares? We have a voice. We have a loud voice. We got elected because of it, and amplified our voice by being elected. And the job is to give voice to others. The bylaw change in the third LD that I was very vocal about pushing would allow others to run for the position I was in. I knew that going in, and I gave everything I could to getting that bylaw changed. And I see you, Joanne, this time. So I also want to reach out to groups that we haven't represented as well as we could and ask them, come talk to us, come talk to the e-board, come talk to the PCOs, tell us what you would like us to know and how we can help you.
Thank you so much, Andy, for that answer. And I love, and I'm so encouraged to hear about all the ways the Spokane County Dems right now are trying to increase their membership. My mother is undocumented, so all of these things are very near and dear to my heart. Gets me a little teary-eyed, so it's amazing to hear. We have another question continuing on. This is sent in by Nancy Street, and she's asking, what are new ideas about how to turn Spokane County and the 5th District blue? And Adding on to that, since there are many different districts within Spokane County, how can we flip all these districts blue and build out our numbers in new ways that previously maybe we haven't tried in the past? I'm going to start with you, Nicole, and we'll go down the list.
Sounds great. No, I love that question because implicit in that question is the ability to adapt and change and grow and try new things and change away from business as usual, because unfortunately, business as usual has not been working. I think the first thing is that we really need to work on a 5 to 10 year strategic plan. And right now, I'm working with folks to get that underway. And in fact, at our next e-board meeting, I will be codifying a committee to implicitly work on this. So we could have, or explicitly work on this, so we could have this ready to go and underway. And I think part of that 5 to 10 year plan is tapping into the experience and expertise of the campaigns that have run before. Lori Fagan, Zach Sapone, Tom McGarry, all of these people have this insight. They could tell us what worked, what didn't work. Lisa Brown has a really similar thing, and that may be something that's been done before, but it's never, to my knowledge, at least in recent years, been put into a plan. But I think beyond that, what we really need to do is also make a coordinated effort to not just say what we stand against. I know it's really easy to say we stand against Trump, we stand against Kathy McMorris Rodgers, but we also saw that the most successful races in our past cycle were those of Zach Sapone, who said what he stood for. He stood for education, and he stood for, banning conversion therapy. These are really areas that we need to focus on, and we need to remind these people, especially folks in the rural areas who don't really have the education base to know what a Democrat is versus what they see in the media that they consume, that this is what a Democrat is, and here's how it's for your best interest. And so I'm really eager to get folks together from all areas of our region to think tank that and be open to adaptation.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much for that answer. Riley, you have the floor.
Yeah, and thank you for your kind words about our campaign, Nicole. I appreciate that. But no, I think part of it is actually kind of what Nicole said, is what I experienced was successful in our campaign was simply sharing our values with people at their doorsteps, sharing how our values are very much alike, and actually those that they may have continually been voting for, their values are very much against their own. A lot of people simply just don't understand. Maybe they're intimidated by the political process. They've just seen Kathy McMorris Rodgers' name for the last 10 ballots in a row or whatever it is. And they're like, oh, I know that name. I see her signs around, but they don't really know anything about her or what she's voted for or what she's voted against. We need to make sure people understand what our representatives' voting records are. When we told people that Representative Mike Voles voted against banning conversion therapy, it was an instant win. We have issues that we win on. We support inclusiveness. We don't support banning conversion therapy. We support paid family leave and medical leave to give people the economic freedom to start a family and to not have to worry about how they're going to pay their bills. And these are the issues that people care about. For too long, it's just been, I'm going to send out a mail piece that has my 3 issues that have been the same as the last 10 Democrats to come through here. And for some reason, those are going to win. No, it's time for fresh ideas. It's time to talk about things that people care about. People care about when their free and fair election might be in danger and their vote might not be counted. People care about their day-to-day life and their paycheck. And when we promote union membership, we promote good paying jobs with worker protections. People care about these things. And I think you saw that in our results in November.
Thank you, Riley. Jacqueline.
So I like what people, especially like Nicole and Riley have mentioned already, the idea of a long-term plan and thinking long-term, 5 to 10 years, and showing the people in our community, because oftentimes, like, I live out in Cheney, and throughout this entire process, even the last year or so since I've been back, constantly reminding people, especially on the various e-boards, that there's more to Spokane County than just the downtown and the valley area. Like, we're more than just the 3rd and 4th there's a lot of communities that feel left out, and they're feeling left out by both parties. And this is a time that we can capitalize on this. So I think having the long-term goals of 5 to 10 years, being able to share our values with these people in these communities, meeting them at their doorsteps, and don't expect them to come all the way up and meet us on our level. We need to be able to meet people in the middle, and people are feeling left behind by both sides, and having promises that just get broken isn't helping anything either. We need to be able to show them through numbers, through voting records, how we have had their back, how our party is the one that will put their interests first, not big agriculture, but our little farms, our mom and pop farms that are losing out left and right. We're oftentimes thinking, oh, the Republicans, they're just worried about farmers, and we lump all farmers and ranchers in with big agri. They're not the same. And these farmers, they're really worried about the climate and things that are changing, and their soil, and whether or not they're going to be able to grow the crop that they've been growing for the last 30, 40 years. These are things that they are concerned with, and these are issues that Democrats are addressing that the Republicans aren't. And that's how we meet the rural communities. That's how we're going to get to them, by sharing those values, like have been mentioned before. So
Awesome. Thank you, Jacqueline. As an actual small 10-acre farmer, I really appreciate that answer.
no, I'm a paleontologist who works on showing farmers and ranchers the resources of their lands. I've spent the last 4 or 5 years dealing with them and explaining what's going on. So
yeah, it's awesome.
Love to bring that insight, and that's something that the Democrats have been missing out on. So
absolutely, permaculture forward.
Something that I feel very passionate about.
I love it. Melissa, would you like to answer this question?
Yeah. So as far as innovative ways on how to, flip the 5th and other district, other LDs and just Spokane County, let's just say Eastern Washington. How about that? We'll just flip the entire eastern part of the state. Innovative ways. So I'm always going to be pushing on education. That's my wheelhouse. So just making sure we're providing more opportunities to provide some basic civic education, because I will be the first to admit, as the former elementary public school teacher, that is missing in our education system and has been absolutely gone for the last 4 years, but that's a whole different soapbox. So other than education, though, I think a really important piece to this is tapping into our resources and our own experts within our community, because I think that's also missing. I am looking at this call right now. I know it's being streamed on live on YouTube, but I'm looking on this call and I see Riley, I see Josh, and I know we have Jeremiah and the Young Dems and Jeff and the Young Dems who've all worked on campaigns just recently, who have this expert knowledge. I know we have people working in the political arena right now. Like I can see Mark on here, so we have these experts, and I don't know why we're not tapping into them and really entrusting them, and entrusting the younger voices too. Again, my soapbox here on just these younger voices, that we've had a lot of these like traditional practices of what's been done, but we also realize that we do need to like change things up to make it work. So really just tapping into our experts, utilizing them, forming committees for that. I think that's the best innovation we can do, is utilizing the resources we have and really giving a voice to the people who want to be a part of this process.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Andy, if you would, I'm going to ask you to unmute again.
I'm unmuted this time. Okay, so the agricultural outreach is great. I'm absolutely for that. That's the economy, for the most part, outside of urban Spokane. In addition to that, we have the state pushing every race, every place. And we have candidates in some races where there's spitball candidates who have no real expectation of winning, intelligently so. But we also miss an opportunity there to connect with voters. When I do door knocking, I consider it to be a listening session. I do maybe a minute and a half of talking, and then 5 minutes of listening. And I feel like that really gets them to feel more connected to the candidate I'm door knocking for. And we need to use the state's help for every race, every place, and have candidates where even if they're going to lose, we know by 10 points, no matter who we run, get out there and get door knocking and have these listening sessions. Riley had experience with Zach Sapone's, and their ground campaign, I think, was fantastic. And I think he will be an incredible resource to liaise with candidates and campaign managers to what worked for them, what didn't work for them, and give us a head start in that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Andy. These last couple questions, as we're nearing towards the end here, were sent in by Jess Annison, and they're more lighthearted. No meaning of life stuff. But Nicole, you can answer one of these two. What Harry Potter house would you be part of? Do you think you'd be sorted into? And or if you were an ice cream, which one and why?
That's a great question. I'm going to answer the Harry Potter question primarily because I haven't had dinner yet and I'm going to get too hungry. So to the first question, which Harry Potter house? So this is actually a tough question. I know it should be an easy answer, but I vary depending on which test I take. And I think that both are equally valid. I often get sorted, and probably most often get sorted into Hufflepuff. And before anyone laughs and snubs their nose that I'm a Hufflepuff, I have to say that they're the ones that stand for justice, stand for the little guy, and are always there to help bring people together. So no, we're not just the ones off in the woods saying potato. We're really good people ready to support a cause. And then I also get sorted into Ravenclaw. And I think that fits too because I love school. I'm a giant nerd. And when I have less, existential doom on my mind, so basically not the past 4 years, I love reading. So those are the two for me. I'm really anxious and hoping that I won't hear a Slytherin among the next 4 folks, but fingers crossed, we'll see.
All right, Riley, no pressure. Are you a Slytherin?
I don't believe I am personally, but somebody else might believe I am. I would probably identify most with the Gryffindor house. I know it's kind of a cliche to say Gryffindor, but I feel like, they're always the ones, not the only ones, but they're always fighting, for what's right. And they oftentimes prevail. So I'd like to, see the party take that kind of path and stand up for what's right and prevail in the end. I think that's kind of a motto we should maybe take.
Thank you, Riley. Jacqueline, ice cream flavor or Harry Potter house you think you'd be sorted into?
Ooh, well, I'm a millennial and a nerd, so of course I'm going to go with the Harry Potter question. I'd like to think Ravenclaw because I'm a freaking nerd, but it's always Gryffindor because, again, much like what Riley said, like I am the person who stands up when no one else does. When there's an empty seat that needs to be filled and you need somebody to take up the mantle, it'll be me. I'm always the first to raise my hand in group projects. I was the one who took over for everything. Like, it's just who I am as a person. I've always stood up for the little guy. I've been the one to put myself in harm's way to, protect somebody else, whether it's verbally or physically. Like, I'm going to be the one to stand up for everybody else. I was a child who was abused and ended up in foster care and stuff as a child. And so it's always been something that has been really close to me, is sticking up for the little guy and sticking up for the person who has, who doesn't have the voice. And that's, again, why I've been drawn to the Democrats over and over and over again. This is the party of the little guy. This is the party of the underdog. This is the party that is the champion of the people. And it's time that we bring that back and really just, make that known that this is what we do. This is who we are about. And we're here to fight for the little guy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jacqueline. Dr. Melissa Bedford, if you would like to answer what house you would be in.
Of course I want to answer. So I always like to say I'm a Ravendor. I'm very strongly Ravenclaw. I am a big time nerd. I'm pretty sure Luna Lovegood would be my BFF and we would be in our common room together and just like playing with all our, the Nargles and everything would be in our head nonstop. But I do have my Hermione and McGonagall moments. My office at for my job is actually Hogwarts themed. So I actually have like if you can't see all my Funko Pops behind me up here, but I actually have McGonagall and Snape ones, but McGonagall is like my girl. So I try to channel my inner McGonagall. And I will mention, sorry, there goes my dog again, that there is a Slytherin among us. And I asked if I could say it out loud, and it is Mr. Mark Carlos here. I do know he is a very proud Slytherin, so I gotta call him out a little bit. But we do love Mark and his Slytherin-esque ways, because hey, they're just really proud and they are very motivated and doing what they want. And I think that matches Mark to a T. So we love you, Mark. Not meaning to put you on the spot. Love you.
Also, we appreciate that you put on Slytherin swag. Dedication. Continuing, Andy, again, what house would you be sorted into, or what ice cream flavor would you be?
Oh, I'll answer both. Ice cream, definitely Cherry Garcia. And hello, I'm a Marine. That pretty much limits me to Slytherin or Gryffindor, and I'm definitely Gryffindor. Now, I did see someone say, hey, they're feeling left out on a limb being the only Hufflepuff, but we need different tools in the tool bag. We got a Slytherin, we got the Hufflepuff, and we got a few Gryffindors, but different tool, right tool for the job.
Absolutely. So we only have one more question left, I believe. Let me just refresh the email box here and make sure. Okay.
If I might add really quick, Hogwarts is founded on the 4 houses. So you got to have the strength in that giant house with all 4 houses. I'm just going to say.
Absolutely. So our final question is, I guess this is more about political burnout, because we've all experienced it, especially these last 4 years. They've been incredibly turbulent. So the question from Jess Annison is, what do you do to relax and give yourself grace in turbulent situations that take many hours, days, or even months? And how do we ensure as a democratic community that we don't encourage a culture of burnout within us and amongst us? So Nicole, you first.
Great. Jess, I am so glad you asked that question, because it's really important. Not only does it promote self-care and the idea that our identity doesn't get consumed by the party, but it also promotes the good of the party by the base of that question. So thank you so much for asking that. In terms of what I do to relax, really family is my go-to. So I'm an ESFJ, and my boyfriend always jokes that I'm doing all that S sensory stuff when I'm off the clock, when I'm not doing work here, which means I'm on Netflix quite a bit. I'm scrolling through my phone. During the pandemic, we really don't have a lot of other options. If it was outside of the pandemic, I'd say I love, going downtown and people watching and just breathing in that life. But I can't do that right now. I have to be really careful, and I'm glad and I'm happy to do that. So how I unwind is really that time with family, friends, and I do a Zoom game night every week with my friends back east. So I really enjoy that. But I think the bigger question here is, how do we prevent it as a party? And I think that the first thing is we need to have a deep bench, which is we need to be able to have a lot of people to rely on, so that all of the work, the onus of that doesn't fall on one person or 2 people. Having that diffused, many hands make light work. And I am happy to do the work needed to build the party, so we have those many hands making that light work. And then I think the other piece of it is making a culture that shows it's okay. I work with a lot of people right now where they'll occasionally message me and say, hey, I just want to let you know I'm having a really rough week. And for me, that's my cue to, great, what can I take off your plate? What can I help you delegate? Because the work that we're doing as a party does not supersede your own mental health. And I think setting an example of that at the top as a chair and making sure that other folks, and I feel confident in the folks that are here tonight, that's an example they're happy to set as well. And I've seen that in action. And I think that's really how we're going to do it to prevent that burnout. And then also, I think even times like this, where we're having a chance to interact as human beings without Robert's rules of order interfering, that's going to be a great way to be able to understand that despite our differences, we're still human beings, and let's get along.
Thank you, Nicole, for that answer. Riley, you have the floor.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question to ask as well. We experienced a lot of political burnout in our campaign. I witnessed it firsthand, not just on the actual campaign itself, but within the volunteers. And I think Nicole makes a great point in that we need to make a deeper bench of those volunteers and those resources, because when we have lots of great Democratic candidates, but not enough resources to go around, then nobody's moving forward. It's just a few groups moving around between these candidates and not really accomplishing much. I feel like, yes, we need to make a deeper bench, but also we need to make sure that, yes, our culture is accepting of mental health problems that people might be having. And you know, people experience things that we don't know are going on in their everyday lives, and it's just a sense of understanding. We all want to win and we all want Democrats to be in power, but first and foremost, we need to make sure that our public health and our people are happy and enjoying their quality of life. And I think that's generally what Democrats stand for. We stand for strong mental health resources. And, you know, we can benefit from those as well. Just because we support providing those for everyone doesn't mean we need to be above using them ourselves. And I think, you know, being open and having those conversations of being like, wow, I've had a lot of politics in the last week. Let's go grab a drink when we can again. And, you know, just take a breath and relax a little bit, because while there is a bigger picture at the end of what we're trying to accomplish, we're not going to get there if we're all just doing a half-assed job. Pardon my French.
Thanks, Riley. Jacqueline, if you would like to answer this question, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Well, so my go-to way of relaxing, I've got a teenager and a toddler, and then a husband who stays at home. And so for me, between being a full-time parent and being a full-time educator, my biggest way of relaxing is locking myself in the bathroom with a bubble bath and 3 hours of Star Trek. I watch an ungodly amount of Star Trek. And so for me, it's a big part of how I just unwind and really Star Trek has shaped how I view society and our goals for the future. And so whenever I'm down or I am starting to feel burnt out about the process or campaigning or whatever, Star Trek has always been there as my go-to, because it gives me hope and it helps inspire me and remind me what I'm fighting for and why I do what I do. And then to see, you know, my husband who's a veteran, and this is what I fight for, and my children as I raise them and their education and making sure there's a future for them. And so it is about, you know, finding that bit to relax and take your mind off of things, but then also being able to, yeah, like strengthen numbers. Let's find more people. Let's get more people involved and bring as many people in as we can, so that there are more hands to do the work. There are more ways that we can delegate the tasks. And then it's not so many people spreading themselves so thin. And a lot of times we have people that give a big push in those election years, and then they kind of fade away in those off years, especially with Democrats. Like, we just don't turn out for midterm typically. So let's make sure that we have that, you know, that environment so that people aren't getting burnt out and they do want to stick around and hang out for those midterm pushes where there's still a lot of work to be done. And so it's just making sure we delegate and just give people that breathing room.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jacqueline. It's a great emergent strategy that's coming out here. Dr. Melissa Bedford, it is your turn to answer this
First,
question.
I just have to say, is there really any, like, is there such thing as too much Star Trek? Like, I just don't know. Like, literally after we're wrapping up here, we're watching the series or the season finale of Discovery, right? Like, you got that little face coming in over here. But so, sorry, now I lost my train of thought because I was like, wait, we're talking about Star Trek, right? No, we're talking about self-care. I just believe in that old adage of, if you can't help others if you don't help yourself, right? And if we're not taking care of ourselves, how are we going to have the energy to really help others, especially within our community? So taking that time to, you know, take time for yourself, having people you can count on and work with. So everything that's just been said, I also think, just to kind of add to that, is, you know, COVID will come to an end. We don't know how soon, but it will. Like, I hold on to the hope it'll happen sooner rather than later, but it will end. And when that does happen, that is a great opportunity for us as an organization to support local businesses and restaurants and go out and have fun and do meetings together, and just really not even like politically driven meetings, but just gatherings where we can meet with fellow Democrats and have fun and chat like this. And shout out to William Kilpatrick, not use Robert's rules when we're out. And just, so just, you know, have that fun time and really just become a community, right? Because I think that's just really important, is just being a community and supporting each other. So that's my answer.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Andy, if you would like to round us out here.
Okay, so I actually have some firsthand experience with having to pull myself back. I suffer from depression. I take medication for it. And I have had my wife on a couple of times say, "You're not you right now. It's time for you to take a break." And I've had to talk to candidates and say, "Hey, I have to be unavailable for a few days just to recenter myself." I'm naturally an introvert, and I practiced seeming outgoing and relating to people smoothly, but it's exhausting. It takes a lot out of me, and it really puts a lot of tension in me, and I need, knowing myself, I need intensity to get it out. I used to run to get that stress out. My knees didn't like that, so I don't do that anymore. But now I've got a home gym, or if I've just had too much sensory input from being around too many people, I will ignore my family for a couple of hours and just look at a screen and not talk to anyone, and then get up and start the work again.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Andy. So we have a question in the chat, but we're not accepting any questions from the chat, and we're about to round out, but I think we'll just answer this last question and then we'll end the candidate forum. The question's from Yvette. She's asking, do you know Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? Okay. Do you know Joe Biden and Kamala Harris 4 priorities for this transition? Do you know Joe Biden and Kamala Harris 4 priorities?
Do I know them personally? I totally wish I did. Like, I would just have a field day. That would be so awesome. Sorry, I was like, if I knew them, yeah, that'd be awesome. I don't quite understand the question. So
yeah, neither do I. And Yvette, we answered your racial equity question already at the beginning of the candidate forum. Oh, she's asking, do you know what their 4 priorities are?
Yeah, so I could go ahead and answer this one. This is a question where I know generally what the priorities are off the top of my head. I couldn't rattle them off, but fortunately I have a handy tool called Google. And so it looks like its 4 priorities are COVID-19, economic recovery, racial equity, and climate change, which makes perfect sense. I found this consistent with what they've both worked on the campaign trail. And I think these are priorities that our party locally is happy to, and is in a lot of ways adopted and continuing to grow toward as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering that, Nicole. And with that, this is the close of the Spokane County Democrats Candidate Forum. I want to thank everyone for showing up here today, to Nicole, Riley, Jacqueline, Melissa, Andy, and everyone who is running or has nominated to run. That's an amazing thing you all are doing, stepping up and taking charge to see change in your own community. I'm super excited and stoked to see everyone here and so many different faces, different ages, amazing. Again, you can view this on YouTube, and just a reminder, tomorrow is the vote. So if you're a Spokane County Democrat PCO, make sure you show up and vote for these amazing candidates. And thank you all so much for coming.
And thank you, Tori, for moderating.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Tori, and thank you, everyone. Have a great night, y'all.
Thanks so much.
Good night, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
See everyone tomorrow.